Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Sober Life Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jones. I want to thank you for joining me once again today as we talk to different people throughout the community, throughout Florida, and even beyond about addiction recovery, where to get help, and, of course, mental health as well. We talk about all of that. I know it's a Friday afternoon, so if you are watching live, remember that you can certainly chime in and chat with us, and we will be able to see your chats. So we look forward to hopefully talking to you guys during the show. Also, if you have any ideas or somebody that you'd like to be on the show, something you'd like us to talk about, please let us know in the comments, and we'll see it, and we'll certainly respond to it. A little reminder that Halloween is right around the corner. It's coming up next week. This is a great opportunity for those of us who are in recovery, who maybe have kids. Great time to spend time with kids, take a walk with them, go out and have some fun. It's a great bonding. I think it's one of my favorite holidays because families that walk around together, it's just such a great experience to see that happen. So go ahead and do that. And of course, be safe among all other things. With all of that, I want to tell you that I've got a special guest. This is Steve Blank. I met him a couple of maybe 2 years ago or a little less than that. And he was one of our trainings, and we started to talk, and we've become friends, and certainly become engaged in the same process of trying to help people. We work together. He's a very, you know what? I'm just going to bring him in because he's been a lot of places and he's done a lot of different things. And where he's settled into now is really just a great program that I want to tell you all about. Before we get started, let me bring Steve in. And let's see. Let's bring there. I'm hitting the wrong button. There we go. Hey, Steve, how are you, brother?
Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm doing fine. First of all, thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. I
appreciate you making the time.
I really appreciate it. My friend Lucas is on. Hey, Lucas, so thanks for joining us today. Steve, you're with WestCare, and let's just give broad strokes. What is WestCare? You know, how big are they, and what kind of work do they do?
So WestCare, and I'm still learning about WestCare. I got here in May of this year, and I'm working here in Florida. But WestCare is a large nonprofit that is in about 16 states, across our country, and they're also in some other areas such as Guam, Puerto Rico. I believe they're in the Dominican Republic, and there's probably one or two other places outside the United States that they are too. So we're a large nonprofit, and we focus a lot on services for people. Our mission is uplifting the human spirit. So from addiction treatment to services for moms with their kids to housing to shelter services, working with the prison systems, providing an alternative to staying in jail and getting an opportunity to go into treatment. But a lot of things, and I'm quite sure there's a lot of stuff that I could be talking about that I don't know about yet. I'm still learning about WestCare, but it's been a great opportunity for me, and really I've kind of felt like I've found exactly where I need to be.
That's great, because you have been quite a few places. We won't name the specific places because that's probably not appropriate, but you've been working in the field of addiction, mental health, and helping people. How long have you been doing this?
Been doing it for about 34 years, coming up on 34 years, pretty much since I've gotten clean, which was kind of my pathway to working in the field. So it's been a while, and I have seen some things, both good and less than good.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, and we're going to talk about that for sure. 34 years. I imagine before, because you said you got sober, you got clean, and you decided you wanted to work in this pathway. Was this your original plan from the beginning of Steve's existence, or did you have something else in mind before all this came around?
So prior to me getting into this line of work, I always work with people. I was in sales, from selling shoes to working in the sporting goods business, and different telemarketing. And then when I changed my life, I got out of treatment, got an opportunity to go back to work in sales. And after like 3 days, I went to the guy that owned the company and I said, I appreciate the opportunity, but I can't do this anymore. This isn't really, it just doesn't feel right for me. And then I just kind of tried to figure out what I wanted to do. I was obviously in the days of looking in the newspaper for jobs. There were still newspapers. So I found a job, and I took a job working in Kensington, Philadelphia, doing outpatient counseling for a bunch of guys that were living in recovery houses around Kensington and Allegheny, which was kind of ironic for me.
Yeah, a couple of Philly guys here. I spent 20 years in the Philadelphia area, and still rooting for the Eagles, I hope.
I have not stopped rooting for the Eagles. I've tried to put the Phillies, just put them on the back burner until next year, but absolutely go Birds. And it's they're fun to watch, and something I've been interested in for a long time. Really, as far as sports go, it's really what I still kind of follow. So yeah.
I've still got some indigestion from the Phillies. The last two games there, they should have picked up one of those and gone on to the World Series. But hey, there is next year. It's a good team. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And if you're not a Phillies fan, then Steve and I will still accept you as a person, but it'll just be more difficult. That's all. Steve, so you've been in counseling, and then obviously you've moved into even administrative stuff and everything. What was your journey like? I mean, was it? Did you know you wanted to elevate, or because working with people is one thing, moving into administration and now as a VP, that's a whole new world to get involved in.
It is, and no, didn't know that I wanted to get into administration. Just was super grateful that I had an opportunity to work with people and do for other people what was done for me. I mean, that was really kind of at the core of what I was doing. And, as the years went on and started, obviously having a family, little kids started coming along, so things like being able to, pay my bills and just being able to support myself. And, for me, Scott, I also got to a point where I knew I needed to go back to school and get something, some letters after my name if I wanted to make the next step. So, but it wasn't ever like I said, I want to be at the top, when I'm doing this. I still really, what's at the core of it is just me being able to want to help some people. But, went back to school, got my degree, I've gotten some certificates, some through One Brother, One Sister, which has been awesome, but some others, credentials that have just made it possible. And, really just an opportunity to lead and manage people and do it in a way that I feel good about. I've also had an opportunity to really have some great mentors along the way that I learned very clearly some good things to do and also some things to stay away from. So I've been fortunate. There's been a lot of people that have been in my life over the years doing this, and I really was fortunate, especially when I was in Pennsylvania. I got to work under some people who just had a very good understanding of what this should be, and it wasn't just about money. It was about providing good services and seeing people begin to get well, but also more importantly, what we could do to help them stay well.
Absolutely, and it's great to have somebody like you with the not only the knowledge but the life experience to bring it into administration and to make it to affect change from the top, so that we can catch up with what's going on. And we're going to talk about that. Sandy's with us. She's saying good morning. Karen is watching, and she's actually watching from her office next door, saying hello, guys.
Hello, Karen.
So 34 years ago, you come into this business, you come into recovery, you come into this business.
Mhm.
It's much different today than it was 34 years ago. What are some of the significant changes that you've seen? Are we heading in the right direction?
I mean, that's a good question. I think there are good things that are happening related to this field. Again, going back to kind of organizations and people that I've kind of gotten involved with that are about doing the right thing. I mean, years ago when I first got into this, things like medication assisted treatment, people taking, saying they were in recovery while they were, taking medications that could help them from overdosing, dying, remaining addicted. I can tell you, for me, when I first started doing this, you couldn't really talk about that in a meeting, and it was kind of like, oh, that's just replacing, one thing from another. Thank God through my process, I've learned to just remain open to change. And I know, well, and again, with things that have come along like fentanyl, which has really been a game changer when it comes to addiction and also medications that, years ago, there was things called antabuse and, things that if you drank, you got sick. Whereas now there are medications you can take them and you don't get sick, but you also don't really get drunk. So what I've learned is, who am I to judge people for their own recovery process? And just because, when you or I went through this a long time ago, if you had a sponsor, if you chose to get a sponsor, they told you, have to work the steps. You got to carry this book around. It's got to be your Bible. Go to as many meetings as you can. So luckily I did that. I mean, but for me, it was good because I really took advantage of the whole social aspect. To go back to your question, as far as, are things moving in a good direction? I think there are good people at the highest levels, politically, treatment-wise, locally. Peers in recovery has become a big thing in and around treatment and recovery. Folks, somebody figuring out, it makes sense to have folks who have walked in other people's shoes to be in and around treatment and recovery. And that's really not that far of a stretch from kind of how things happened with 12-step programs. People a long time ago, people in recovery gravitated towards this field. The mindset was a little bit different. So I think there are always going to be, unfortunately, situations where people's motivations may not always be what's maybe the best or the most moral thing to do. But even some of those people, I think some of the folks that get involved with the business, they see an opportunity for it to be what it is, a business. And I don't think that everybody all the time always says, I want to set out to make $1 million off of these unfortunate people. I think it's just a matter of they don't know enough, and when they start to learn more and when they start to know, is unfortunately when folks become personally affected by addiction, whether it's somebody who, passes away or whatever. So there are good things that are happening. I mean, working, being connected with folks like yourself and Karen and some of the other folks, WestCare, what goes on here. I mean, I'm to a point in my career where I don't really want to be associated with an organization that's not about uplifting the human spirit and doing the right thing. So it can be a business, you can earn a living, but for me, it needs to be way more than that.
Well, I mean, businesses, the doors have to stay open, the lights have to stay on, the employees need to be paid. There's a lot of things going on there. But if it's at the expense of the service you're supposed to provide, then you shouldn't be doing that service. You should be able to do the service that you're supposed to, provide the services, provide the help that you're supposed to, and have the other stuff go on. It is a business and it's really hard. I understand that. But let's talk about, I mentioned, things being different from 34 years ago to now. So I'm going to bring up a couple of specifics and let's talk about that. First of all, the stigma seems to be shifting a little bit. It's not the same being an addict back in the late 80s and early 90s. It's a whole different animal now. And I think some of that is due to there's a lot of Hollywood exposure that has kind of woke people up. Rock and rollers that are getting clean and sober. I don't even think you can get a good part in a movie unless you're going to at least 3 rehabs these days. It's the stigma is changing and it's getting better, isn't it?
It is. And again, for me personally, I think to a fault, I always kind of wore it as a badge of courage. I was never really hesitant to talk about it in and around my work world, although, you need to be careful with that when you're working with people and not trying to impress your own, kind of what worked for you and saying this is what's going to work, for you also. But yeah, stigma wise, because of raising awareness around peer support and just understanding that, there's so many people out there that struggle with this. And the more people you talk to in different, walks of life, everybody knows about it. Everybody's been touched about it. And people are starting to want to talk about it more. And it's the way it should be because, it shouldn't be any different than having high blood pressure or diabetes or other kinds of things that, happen to people. The issue, the difference is just kind of, like you said, the stigma and some of the thoughts that people have around, what that looks like. It's not just about Skid Row. It's not just about, what it looks like at Kensington and Allegheny these days. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a Kensington and Allegheny in a lot of communities. And I see what's going on in different places and it breaks my heart. And it makes me think why can't we do more? And we are doing more. I mean, people are doing more, but, part of the issue is, for the drug sales are prevalent all over the place. So we all know that, it's a business. It's a business for, folks being in the treatment world. It's also a business for a lucrative business for people that are, selling drugs illegally. And, needless to say, what's going on now as far as, people that are now, well, I'm not even going to get into the whole legalization of marijuana thing, but it kind of makes things a little bit trickier because sometimes when folks go into treatment, they're like, well, I got a card, and that becomes a conversation that you have to have. But so yes, it's, stigma's gotten better. I get involved with whatever I can to kind of just raise awareness. Been involved with some great things. There are some great groups here in and around the community. We are, Florida has a large organization called FBHA, which, really includes a lot of different types of providers that it's really just about, keeping us at the top in regards to things that are happening with, different, rules that are being passed and funding opportunities and things like that. So it's part of the business. It's never going away. And for just for today, I don't think the problem of addiction is going away either.
And as Steve was mentioning, areas like Kensington and stuff up in Philadelphia and different areas, every city has their areas where if you go through it, you can go block after block and see people, many homeless, addicted and high on the streets, and it's easier to buy a bag of dope there than to find a bottle of water. I mean, it's a scary place. It's not a place I suggest you visit at night, but if you do, want to really get a little jolt to your heart, drive through some of these neighborhoods. I know Miami's got Overtown, and there's all sorts of different places. Take a look and just see we still got a long way to go. Stigma is better. People, it's acceptable not to drink and not to do certain things now. And even if you said, I used to drink, I quit, and people are more accepting of it now. They just kind of look at it like, okay, so we are going in a good direction. The other thing that's changing a little bit is we are equating a lot more mental health into the areas of addiction and alcoholism. And we really in the last couple, like 2 decades, have really started to draw that line and say, these things rarely don't go hand in hand. There's usually a lot going on there. Have you noticed people making that shift and saying, this is really about treating mental health as well?
It is, and I have noticed that. I mean, when I first started doing this, the word dual diagnosis, it was mentioned here and there. But it was really starting to kind of rear its head. And where we're at today is, so many times mental health, emotional issues are kind of synonymous with people struggling with addiction. So, in addition to you needing to put down the drink and the drugs, you also have to, manage your mental health, which may need, antidepressants or to deal with bipolar or whatever. So, and that's also something that is, probably still more stigmatized than addiction, but there are so many initiatives out there to continue to kind of squelch that and raise awareness around mental health. So when we're celebrating our Recovery Month in September, it's a national thing. So when we celebrate Recovery Month, and I've been in a lot of different recovery events, we make sure to include people struggling with mental health issues too, because there's no way that it shouldn't be absolute part and kind of be side by side and be accepted, for what it is, which is just, another issue that folks struggle with, that people sometimes they do and sometimes they don't need to take medications. But we're getting better with that as a community. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done around there, and things like what you're doing here is an opportunity to continue to kind of marry the two.
Absolutely, and we're seeing more and more reports coming out that we're seeing anywhere from a 60 to 80% crossover of mental health and addictions going hand in hand. Even if we're talking about anxiety and depression and some other ones that are a little more manageable, you get into bipolar, then of course, any kind of schizoaffective disorder. But there are definitely things that go hand in hand. The other thing that people are drawing more attention to these days is trauma, and the trauma, how it relates to, if you don't deal with, listen, if you've become an addict or an alcoholic, if you have the substance abuse disorder, alcohol use disorder, you're going to have trauma in your life. There's trauma. And whether the trauma came before you started or while you were doing it, do you see more and more people, and our therapists are much more adept at dealing with trauma now, and that's really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's and yeah, you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard about it. I've definitely seen it and heard about it. Here at West Care, it's something that we continue to want to get our hands around, and you'll hear a lot of things about trauma-informed care and being culturally kind of sensitive to trauma, and just having your staff be educated on that. Sure. I mean, whether or not it's something that folks maybe were subject to when they were growing up, when we live in a world of addiction, so many times that world and where it takes us puts us in traumatic events, whether it's, folks seeing other people overdose, or, losing your job, losing your life, losing the people that you love. I mean, if that's not traumatic, I don't know what it is. Losing your sense of self. So again, the word trauma, when years ago, when we first started talking about that, people would think about trauma and you think about things like a car accident and things like that. Well, studies show that there's just as much trauma that the brain endures sometimes from some of the stuff that we, see and are around, from addiction. So understanding how you can intermingle trauma in your treatment or your recovery is super important, because that stuff doesn't just go away. It's always kind of like dormant in the back of your head. I still sometimes, have issues. I had a mother that, she struggled, with her own stuff. And I remembered doing homework at the table and her slamming her hand down on the table and making comments to me about my lack of intelligence, for a nicer way to put it. And sometimes now when I'm working, with my granddaughter or my kids growing up, and I think about that, like, no wonder, like, I want to have nothing to do with mathematics, because that was like traumatic to me. And if I tell you, like, the tapes that brought up around, like, having to try and internalize that when you have a big person who's hollering at you, and so. Yeah, just like we should never minimize some of the stuff that we saw growing up or see now, and think that maybe it's not something that impacts our wellness.
Steve, I appreciate you sharing that story, and I chuckle a little bit, only because it's like, I think you're weird if you like math, no matter what the situation. All right, so but. But to be able to share about those things and to connect those to say, that's damaging stuff. And you're not sitting here blaming or doing anything. It's something that happened, and it was damaging. And the more we can talk openly about those situations, about those which might seem like an innocent or just an uncomfortable moment, but it's built upon itself, and to share those things, that's how we get rid of the stigma as well, is to say, hey, listen, everybody carries their own baggage. Some of our baggage is a little more beat up than other baggage, and some of it is a little unhealthy or some. But if we could talk about it, it creates a normalization of the fact that, hey, we all got stuff that we need help with. And I think that's really good. We need more of that. And seeing people working more directly with trauma and mental health, in addition to the addiction and alcoholism treatment, that's really important. Now, there's something that you do that I was impressed with, because I was able to visit your facility last month when Karen and I were over there training, or maybe the beginning of this month. Everything's blended together these days. You really put a lot of emphasis in your program at St. Petersburg, and I assume in all the other WestCare programs, at not just giving them a safe place and teaching them about addiction or about whatever, but you're trying to get them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet with life skills. And there's a lot of places that don't put that kind of effort in. How important do you think that is for your clients, that you guys put an emphasis on learning to take care of yourself?
I think it's huge. And I mean, part of the reason why we're able to do as much as we do here at the Davis Bradley program is because the way some of our contracts are set up and our funding, folks are here with us sometimes for 7-8 months, and they're here for as long as 18 months. You really can't go too many places anymore. Number one, because you're lucky if you can get 14 days from your insurance company. So we're fortunate that we have our funding and our program set up that when folks come here, once we start kind of peeling back the layers and getting them to take a look at, some of their stuff, they also get an opportunity to work on things like high school diploma. So if you come in here and you don't have your GED or your high school diploma, we have an accredited school right here that we work with, a local school where folks actually get not their GEDs, but a high school diploma. So there are classes that are going on here, 5 days a week, upstairs and down here, upstairs for the men and the women. We actually have our programs kind of separated just because that's the way we do it here. But so between getting your high school diploma, but also an opportunity to go to school. So a big part of what we do here is called workforce development. It's been a part of what we do here for a while. And really, it's a team of people that we have that work with individuals to start on job skills, interviewing skills, resume writing, all types of things like that. And then we work with employers and we work with the individuals that are here to start seeking work. And for the most part, everybody that leaves here, when they leave here, has a full-time job. And some of them are making pretty good money that, it makes a whole world of difference when you're not using and you can be making money and not worrying about as soon as you cash your check, you're out of here. So when these people leave while they're working here, they have their money put into savings. So when they leave, we have the ability to provide them with their savings so that they can transition, into their own apartment or recovery housing or whatever. And, never enough housing for folks out in the community. There's always a need for housing. It's part of what we offer here, but so I'm signing off on checks every couple of weeks for people that are leaving for a few $1,000s, and it's because they have the opportunity to go to work, save money, learn a trade, or whatever type of work that they're doing. And to be able to do those things while they're in treatment and not just do like group therapy, individual therapy, maybe some family counseling, if possible. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, and I know this is a little bit old school, but a big part of what we do here at Davis Bradley is we use a TC, or a therapeutic community model. And that is really where the clients just get the opportunity to learn how to take care of themselves, take care of one another, and really where the work happens is in group therapy. So it's not like the old days where you put somebody in the middle of a circle and they got hollered at for an hour, or groups
yeah.
Because I know that went on, but therapeutic community is an evidence-based treatment program that if it's done well, and you make the modifications that are in line with what we do today in treatment in and around the country, it works. And it's just an opportunity for them to learn from one another. So, for me, anybody who has an opportunity to go to treatment and be in treatment for longer than 30 days, and even 30 days, whatever people get, it's a gift, and they have to take advantage and do whatever they can while they have it. But to go someplace for 18 months is, a lot of times it's unheard of. In '89, when I was in treatment, I went someplace and they said, they said, you're going to be here for 9 months. And I was like, of course I cried because it's the first program I was ever in. But when I think back, if I didn't have the opportunity to be somewhere for 9 months around a bunch of people who are my peers and make some of the connections that I did, I don't know that I'd be here having this conversation with you today.
Well, I think it's an obvious conclusion that if you spent 10 or 15 or 20 or even 30 years screwing yourself up and doing all of that, unwinding that in 30 days is a nearly impossible task. And that's what's being asked of treatment centers, to have a place that is a nonprofit that is set up for longer term help is amazing. And, people have to walk out of there stronger. The difference between being in a program for 1 month and being in a program for 6 months or 9 months is astronomical. It's huge, and it's really important. I wanted to ask you one more thing about some of the changes that we've seen. Family involvement has also become a standard in helping people. Not something that we've heard of back in the 80s and 90s as much, but helping families and working with families is very important, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting. I just had a conversation with one of my case managers yesterday who decided to stop by and say hello. And, I said, what do you do here? Because we have a lot of people that work for us, and I've never really gotten a chance to talk to her. But she said, part of what I do is work with the families and set people up with services, for their families. So, what I would say about that is where folks have the opportunity to include their families in their process can also be a game breaker. A lot of times our families are hurt, they don't want to be involved, or we don't want to have them be part of the process because we're ashamed, and there's just all this baggage that goes along with what happens. What I would say is, if you have the opportunity, take the risk, include your families, because they can make all the difference in the world. I was fortunate enough that even though my family was really PO'd at me, they got involved early on. But I also watched people that week in and week out, when it was time for visitation, they had no one to come and see them. So
Yeah.
I feel like that, it just makes a big difference. And, I believe that everybody wants to be connected, especially when it's your own family.
Steve, I imagine you're like me, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that I quit doing this 3 or 4 times a week, every week. I just I say, well, I can't just do it again, because we've seen a lot of heartbreak. We've seen a lot of heartbreak, a lot of loss. For myself, I wake up the next morning, and I usually I'll bring to mind the successes. I'll bring to mind some of the moments that really got to me, the miracles I've been exposed to by being in this business, and that's what keeps me going. Do you have those moments of, wow, I can't lose another person, and then you find a way to bring yourself back?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate part of what goes along with this disease. So we have those incidences, but there are also the other instances, especially working in and around the field, where I will, be at Walmart, be out at a restaurant, be at a recovery event, and people will come up to me and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I know what they're getting ready to say. Like, I know they've met me at a program or a meeting or something, and they say, I just want to say, how much it meant to me, like what happened, for me when I was at this program or that program. You just can't, people can't imagine enough, at least for me, what that means as far as, that's really why I continue to do this. And I know that it's worth it, because I've met so many thousands of people over the years that when you hear those, words of gratitude, beats any paycheck or any other thing that kind of comes along with this. So, and I'm sure you've had some of the same experience, in your circle. So, just knowing that people are grateful and they're doing good and their life has changed. And sometimes they'll even say, yeah, I messed up. I was struggling for a little while, but I'm back and I remember you, or I remember the program. Just makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. And it's an honor in many cases to be able to participate in watching somebody grow and transcend what they've gone through. It's such an honor to be a part of that, and it's warming. Steve, I got to tell you that to have good people like you in the business, to have people like WestCare who do the right thing for the right reasons. That's how we elevate ourselves. And we appreciate the work that you do and the work that's being done at WestCare. Last thought, if you could look into your crystal ball and say 5 or 10 years down the road, what would you like to see change in the treatment industry? Where would you like to see it go next? What do you think is something that we need to do better?
Well, we spoke about it earlier, but I am a firm believer in the fact that the more time in treatment, the better your chances for the better outcomes there are. So what I'd like to see is opportunities where insurance companies and Medicaid and whoever stop doing things where they want folks to maybe fail at a lower level of care and say, okay, well, before we're going to put this person into residential treatment, let's see if they can do outpatient or intensive outpatient, or they have to fail at that before we're going to give them this. So that's been something that's been an issue for a long time. There are good people that are continuing to advocate for things like that. I think the other thing, Scott, that I'd like to see happen, if I really had a crystal ball, is of all the things that I've kind of seen over the years, if we could figure out a way to make fentanyl go away and just have it not exist anymore. I mean, listen, heroin and opiates have been crippling enough, but if there was a way that we could do something to eradicate and eliminate fentanyl, that would be huge. There would be all these, a lot less people losing their lives. So that's my wish, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you, brother. Putting limitations on the time somebody needs to get better is kind of ridiculous. And the idea, like you said, that we're going to put you in a lower level of care. If you fail, then we'll give you more. But unfortunately, because of things like fentanyl, that one failure could be the end. We can't afford that anymore. It's not like the old days back when we first got sober, my friend, where if you went on a weekend binger, chances are you're going to be okay unless something catastrophic happens. These days, you don't know what you're putting in your body.
It's,
you don't know where it's coming from.
It's a game changer, and it's not fun anymore. There's no fun involved in that.
No, it's rolling the dice every time. Whether it's your first time using or last time using, it's rolling the dice every time, and it's scary. And I would also like to, if I can make it look into my ball, I would like people not to be afraid to ask for help or ask for help for their loved ones. If you see somebody who's struggling with mental health, with addiction of any kind, if you're concerned, call somebody and do something. Deciding to wait and see what happens, again, that's rolling the dice. Steve, we would like to see people not being afraid to reach out for help for their loved ones, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Steve, if people want to know more about WestCare, how can they find out? What's your website?
So we're actually working on a new website for our region, but they can go to www.westcare.com. You'll get to see everything about WestCare, both nationally and internationally. But if you're interested in services for something local in the Pinellas, Pasco, Tampa area, give us a call at 727-502-0188. That is our number here at Davis Bradley. Or you can go to westcare.com. You can also just give me a call. My number 727-291-3017. That's my personal cell phone. And, I am not afraid of my phone blowing up if people are looking for help. So I feel like that would be a good thing. So
that would be a very good thing. Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, so we're really easy to get to. I'm super, super proud to be part of this organization and part of this community. I think there's a lot of good things to come. We're going to be pulling together a great recovery event in September next year. And hopefully I can get you guys out there and maybe check it out. So just keep, pushing the message.
Steve, we'll definitely in the next year before the event, we'll get on again. We'll do a show and we'll highlight the event, get people interested. Maybe we'll do a giveaway of something. We'll have some fun with it, but we'll definitely get some people involved. With that, I want to thank you so much for your time, my friend. I know you're a very busy guy. You got a lot going on, and thank you for all the things that you do, the service that you do, and for your open honesty and candor when you're talking about these things. There's no other way to do it, right?
No other way that I know, Al. I mean, if there's another way to do it, it's not my style. So I speak from the heart, but thank you so much for giving me the time and getting the time to hang out. I feel like we're just a couple of guys from across the Delaware River and from Philly. So I would be remiss if I didn't say go Birds this weekend. And just super grateful for the opportunity.
Hey, the Birds' road to the Super Bowl this year, the only obstacle they're going to have is themselves. They got everything they need, so let's see what happens. Hopefully you and I will be celebrating in February an Eagles win.
Man.
But beyond that, I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon for the Sober Life podcast, coming to you right here from the Sober Life studios. And, of course, One Brother, One Sister is our sponsor for the show. Thank Steve Blank from West Care, and specifically from the St. Petersburg area, and all the great work you guys do there. Please go to westcare.com to check it out. Call and ask questions. Call the things you don't know are the things that are going to bite you. Ask questions if you don't know what's going on. If you want to know what services are in your area, that's a good person to talk to right there, Steve, and he's always at the ready to help people. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure that you like this program and you share it with your friends. Leave comments if you ever want to get on the show yourself or have a topic you'd like us to cover. We're here for you. Steve, thanks again, my friend.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And we'll catch you here next week, right on here.
Talk to you soon.
The Sober Life Podcast. We'll catch you.
Yep.